With winter right around the corner, every single year I start having a Dragon Ball phase. For those of you that watch YouTube Shorts know that I'm re-watching every single episode of Dragon Ball Z daily, but when it comes to my little Dragon Ball phase, I don't stop just at watching the anime. There is a different kind of media I love to sink hours into, and that's video games.
Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
And that's where Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 comes in. In this video, we will talk about what made the game so incredible, and how even almost a decade after its release, it still refuses to die, and how it managed to keep an active player base all these years. Xenoverse 2 is one of those games that people expected to die years ago, but it just didn't. The game came out in 2016, and most anime games don't even survive 2 or 3 years before the player base drops and everyone moves on to the next big thing. But Xenoverse 2 is different. Somehow, almost a decade later, it's still alive, still getting updates and DLC, and still pulling in players every single day. And the crazy part is that it doesn't even feel like a game being kept alive by force. It feels like a game that genuinely refuses to die because the community and the developers won't let it. The biggest reason Xenoverse 2 is around is simple. People actually care about their characters. In most anime games, you pick a presented hero, do a story mode, maybe mess around with some missions, and you're done. But Xenoverse 2 lets you create your own Dragon Ball character that actually feels like it belongs in the universe. Xenoverse lets you build a Saiyan, a Namekian, a Majin, a Frieza race alien, which I know, Frieza is literally the most famous villain, yet they haven't thought of a name for his race. I know, but you get to level up these characters, customize their skills, pick their outfits, and just have your input into the character you created. And once you've sunk time into that character, it's hard to leave the game. Every update, every new skill and transformation, it all feels like something for you and your character, and that alone keeps a lot of people coming back. Another huge reason is the amount of support this game has gotten over the years. Xenoverse 2 is treated like a live service game, even though it didn't start that way. Year after year, Bandai keeps dropping DLC packs with new characters and events, even storylines. Even when people would think support is finally finished, they'd be surprised with more content coming out. Every time Dragon Ball gets something new, whether it's a movie or a new form, Xenoverse is right behind in adding that character or that transformation to the game. Most anime games get abandoned fast. Xenoverse was never abandoned. Even the first game got a few DLCs before they moved on to the next one. Xenoverse 2 is treated like a long-term project, and that alone gives it a huge advantage over everything else. But official support isn't the only thing keeping the game alive. The community is very dedicated, with people posting builds, combos, strategies, and highlights, literally everything you can imagine. There are YouTube channels built entirely around Xenoverse 2. There are even modders who give the game a second life on PC with new animations and transformations and sometimes full overhaul. Some communities keep game alive for a year or two, but Xenoverse fans have done it for nearly a decade. And then there's the gameplay itself. Xenoverse 2 is flawed, but it's fun. That's the key. It's not the deepest fighting game, and it's not the cleanest multiplayer game, and the netcode can definitely be rough. But it's fun in a way that's very Dragon Ball. It captures the feeling of the anime perfectly, and surprisingly, the feeling doesn't get old. You can hop in the game after months away and still get the same rush. The structure of the game helps too. You've got story missions, parallel quests, raids, events, PvP, the Hero Coliseum. We don't talk about the Hero Coliseum. But every update adds a reason to revisit the game. And because there's so much to do, the community never looks dead. There's always someone online doing something, even if it's not the same thing you're doing. What really gives Xenoverse 2 longevity is that sense of routine. For years now, the cycle has been the same. You get a teaser, the DLC drops, people return, play it, and the game lives on. It's predictable in the best way. You always know something is coming. Even if you're not playing the game is gonna stay in your mind because you know a new DLC could drop any month. There's also the Dragon Ball effect, because Dragon Dragon Ball itself never really dies as a franchise. Japan would have a whole economic crisis if it did. But there's always a new project when it comes to Dragon Ball, whether it's a new movie, manga arc, anything besides continuing Dragon Ball Super. It's been 7 years, but every time the franchise does something new, Xenoverse 2 benefits. People see a new form and know it's gonna eventually get added to Xenoverse, and when it does, players come back just to play through it. So Xenoverse stays alive because instead of being part of the past, it stays tied to the present of Dragon Ball. Even when a new Dragon Ball game comes out, there is new content being added around that game in Xenoverse 2. Of course, the game isn't perfect. The netcode is old, the combat can be very unbalanced, and PvP can be weird if you're lucky enough to even find a match, Jesus Christ, and loading times can be annoying. And the game's age definitely shows, especially in the graphics sometimes when you're playing early missions. But the good outweighs the bad. People complain about the game, but they also keep playing it. It's one of those situations where the flaws become part of the charm. You know the issues are there, but you also know that no other anime game does what Xenoverse does. It's easy to stop playing for a while, but it's hard to quit forever. And the game is really easy to return to. Xenoverse doesn't punish you if you don't play for months. You can return after a year, pick up your character, and after a few missions, you're back in the loop. Which is funny because when you think about how much content this game has, it really does respect your time. And honestly, Xenoverse 2 has nostalgia working in its favor too. For a lot of fans, this was one of the main Dragon Ball games growing up. Me personally, it was Budokai 2, but that's because I was poor. But Xenoverse also came out in a very good era for Dragon Ball. When it came out, Dragon Ball was becoming big again. So now years later, people jump back in because it reminds them of that era. All of these things together create a game that just refuses to die. Not in a desperate way, but in a natural, steady way. It has this weird, perfect balance of official support and the community keeping it alive. Xenoverse 2 basically became a platform by accident. It wasn't intended to last a decade, but it's still here, still supported, still updated, and still talked about. Every DLC adds a new chapter. Every event feels like another excuse to play the game again, and every player that returns keeps the game alive just a little longer. At this point, Xenoverse 2 isn't just a Dragon Ball game. It's part of the Dragon Ball fan experience. It's a shared space where fans are always gathering, even if it's loosely or casually, and definitely not because it's the best anime game ever, far from that, but because it's the game that never stopped being fun and never stopped growing and giving fans something new to look forward to. And as long as Bandai keeps feeding new updates, and as long as Dragon Ball itself keeps producing new content, Xenoverse 2 will keep on living. Maybe for another year, maybe another 5, or maybe until Xenoverse 3 actually becomes a real thing, if that ever happens. Because I don't think Bandai is really seeing a reason to make Xenoverse 3. But for now, it stands as the anime game that simply refuses to go away, because it never really gave anyone a real reason to let it go. And until Xenoverse 3 comes out, I'll be seeing you guys in Content City trying to complete the goddamn Krillin missions. But until then, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Bye bye.